Ladies and gentlemen, do not adjust your TV screens. It is not Paul and Mario joining you for post-game. Ryan has graciously given up his time. I'm doing double duty tonight, and we're going to give you the post-game. Paul, Mario, holiday plans. We all know how hectic things can be, so obviously wish them nothing but the best this holiday season. Merry Christmas. Ryan, before we get started, Merry Christmas to you, man.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, Merry Christmas to the family, and Merry Christmas to everybody out there at Hashtag Nation.
Yeah, absolutely. A nail biter as Donnybrook comes in. Anyone else getting sick of these nail biters? I don't have nails left, but the Buffalo Bills do get the win. The Bills beat the Chargers 24-22. Ryan and I will get into all that in a little bit, but before we do that, gotta do some house cleaning. Of course, first we want to thank Mr. Rogers Homes. Mr. Rogers, one of the top 1% realtors in Arizona. Listen, Buffalo is about to get really cold. At least that's what I'm hearing. Ryan, you live up that way. You know what's about to happen. Everyone would love to get away to Arizona right about now. And so, check it out. Link is in the bio description below. So check him out. A vacation home is always a good idea. If you can afford it, do it. We also want to make sure you guys follow us on all of our social media platforms, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, here. So subscribe if you're not subscribed, like, follow, all that good stuff. So Ryan, the Bills pull it out, a game that a lot of fans were thinking would be wouldn't it be a nail biter, turns into one. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it was shaping up to be a pretty cookie cutter Buffalo Bills gotta have it type of game, right? It was from the get-go, it just felt like all of those old school Bills games that we've seen too many times. You need it. Mm-hmm. It's a bad team. You're supposed to go out and win. You come in as big favorites and you come out the first drive and sputter. You let them go get points. You sputter again. First three drives, you wind up punting. Mm-hmm. And then the Josh Allen turnover comes when you finally start to get a little momentum. You wind up 0-3 in the turnover battle, which in and of itself typically gives you like a 9% chance to win football games, right? Anytime that you lose the turnover battle -3, you've got about a 9% chance of winning that football game. And I was joking about it. I mean, I think everyone who's familiar with hashtag and familiar with my work knows my feelings towards Sean McDermott. I kept coining it the McDermott special was starting to cook up here towards the end of the game. Chargers, Buffalo got the ball back. Cook fumbled it. They go kick a field. And then it's like, how much time is going to be left on the clock? Is McDermott going to play a soft zone? Are they going to let this?
Oh, Ryan, what just happened?
I think I lost you.
I don't know what that was, but go ahead. That's all right. No problem.
Yeah, no, sorry. So it was just kind of shaping up that way. And then, to McDermott's credit and to the team's credit, they buckled down in that 4-minute drive. They did everything they were supposed to do. They sapped the clock. They converted on third downs. Josh did Josh stuff, which, he's an alien, right? I mean, he's one of one. That play on 3rd and 4 where it was just a jailbreak blitz and he's falling back.
There he goes again. Ryan's just leaving, constantly just leaving.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just I'm in and out.
But that.
Let me try stop sharing. Let me see if that helps.
All right, go ahead.
But yeah, that's it was just Josh again makes one of one plays, and I guess lucky for the Bills that they wound up marking Shakir down so they can milk more clock, and they got it done. And then Ed Oliver comes in with the big play, and that's all she wrote. So, I mean, it was one of those games where it just felt like it was going to go the way we've seen it go 1,000 times, and then it didn't. And I think it largely didn't because the team buckled down when they absolutely had to buckle down. I just wish it would have been in the first quarter and they would have just gone up 2 scores and just run away with things before Christmas, because it would have been nice to get an early start on bedtime for us and everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's, speaking to that, that's 2 of the last 3 games, obviously not including the Dallas game, where the Bills defense buckles down at the end and actually does their job and holds a lead, which is something Bills fans aren't really used to. Did a great job. I did want to point out Chuckles World's comment here, because I thought this was going into this game. This was a huge point. Short week for us, long week for the Chargers because they played last Thursday. and no film on the new coaching staff. They have new coaching staff coming in. I tweeted out early last week. I said, this is the third time this season that there's been a coaching change, and the interim head coach is 2-0 in their first week going into this one. The Colts, they went 1-0. The Raiders, they went 1-0. There's just something about having a new leader, having new leadership that makes you want to kind of play up in those moments. And also, I didn't notice until they showed it in the fourth quarter, the Chargers are now 0-6 in games decided by 3 points or less this season. So it's not like this 5-10 Chargers team is a bad team and everyone remembers that 63-20 blowout. Like, no, this is a good team who's just struggling to close games late. And that's what we saw again today against a good Bills team. So a lot of people will look at this game and be like, oh, we should have easily blown the Chargers away like we did Dallas. But they're not really looking into like how the Chargers are 5-10, where they are, how they are, where they are. And this is other than the fact that they don't have Justin Herbert, they don't have Keenan Allen. You can point to those things. It's a gritty team, and this defense isn't a joke. So a win on the road, I'm happy with it overall. There's things to clean up. There is every week. But as I said during live stream, the Bills are who they are, right? There's no, like, this is week 15, 16 of the NFL season. Josh Allen's going to keep making stupid turnovers. Like, it's just who he is. McDermott's going to call a timeout with no time left on the clock because the team's set up the way he wants to see it. Ice the offense, I guess. I don't know. It's just so dumb. But no, I mean, to get things kicking off, I do want to start talking about that slow start. And this isn't the first week where the Bills got off to a slow start, not utilizing the run game like they did last week. Now, could that be because of what the Chargers were showing on defense? But if that is, to me, it starts with that second down pass play to Diggs, where he catches the ball and just goes down. It just seemed like the offense had a hard time getting going.
Yeah, I mean, they struggled to get going early. I thought, by and large, I was okay with the play call. I thought Brady did a pretty good job of getting guys open in space, and Josh just missed throws. I mean, tonight was not the night for the Josh Allen touch pass, and he just had a lot of issues connecting with guys. He had Davis on that opening drive, or I'm sorry, it was Latavius Murray. Actually, he had Murray on the opening drive, that would have gotten to a first down, and then on the second possession, he missed Davis coming across the middle, which would have gone for a massive gain on just a little crossing route. And the pass to Diggs later in the game, it just seemed like the touch wasn't there for Josh. I don't know if he was, sugar high Josh early in the game or what it was. He just couldn't get himself settled down. But those are instances where, you would have liked to have seen Brady go to the run a little more. But again, I mean, you can't complain too much because he had guys open. And Josh just missed him and just wasn't making the right decision. And then when he did make the right decision, he wasn't able to connect with them. And you're not going to be able to do that against good football teams. You're lucky that you were playing Easton Stick today, and they could only muster, 3 points out of those terrible opening possessions. Because if you would have done that last week against Dallas, it would have been a boat race the other way and not in the Bills' favor. Correct.
No, I agree with you 100%. Like you said, normally if you lose a turnover about 3-0, you're less than 10% to win those games. So that's not a recipe for winning. Hopefully we got that out of our system. We all know that Josh Allen cannot go back-to-back games without a turnover. So we expected one from him today. It was the Hardy one. And listen, for Hardy, most of the time sure-handed, right? So, I personally, what I don't like about Hardy is that he seems like whenever he gets the ball, I just want him to run straight. Like, stop dancing for 3 yards. Stop, doing all that nonsense. Just run straight. Like, that's your job. Or just fair catch it. I trust Josh Allen getting me 10 more yards than I trust you getting me 10. So, that's my opinion. But seeing Leonard Fournette back there for kickoffs, I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, there's going to be a change, I think, in the special teams room come the offseason. It's just been too many gaffes on that side, and I think there's going to be a long, hard look at Deontay Hardy and that contract that they gave him. I think there's an out after this year where it's not a huge hit, but it's just been a disappointing signing from him. You'd like to see somebody else maybe get return opportunities and, some of those gadget plays maybe go to a guy like Shakir. Yeah, I mean, Hoffman's makes a good point, right? Like, get the ball in his hands. He seems to know what to do with it. He runs upfield, north south, and takes care of the football. So those are the guys you got to get the ball in the hands to. I think we've talked about this before. I think Hardy was brought in to be a better version of Isaiah McKenzie, because I feel like that's what Dorsey thought he needed for this offense, because that's what Dable had for this offense, right? He schemed McKenzie a lot. And now that Brady's in charge, Dorsey didn't use Hardy. And now that Brady's in charge, I don't think Brady needs a guy like Hardy. So the question is do you keep him just to return punts and kicks, or does that go to somebody else next year? And I think that it's going to ultimately go to somebody else.
I mean, it's, unlike Isaiah McKenzie, Hardy's still on the team. So, there's that. So wasn't it McKenzie who got suspended, like his locker removed or something?
Yeah, they cleaned his locker out. I think they're still trying to figure out what happened. Yeah.
So there's that. But at the end of the day, Josh Allen's going to be Josh Allen, right? Like you said, that third down play to Shakir, like he just makes it happen. And this is what did we say, 11th game where he's had a rushing and throwing touchdown, which is, extending his now record. And like you said, he's one of one, and we're so happy to have him as our quarterback. I still, I think about this all the time. I still remember the draft. I wanted the other Josh, and I'm so happy that people don't listen to me.
If you listen to Mario said that he was Ryan Leaf. So
yes, Mario was huge on to Ryan Leaf.
There was a whole lot of wrong about Josh Allen at that point.
Yeah. So you spoke a little bit into this before we got on the air, as two people who love to dabble in the Vegas side of things. Talk a little about James Cook's day.
Yeah, so bad beat for the James Cook bettors tonight. So James Cook's line went off at 70.5 rushing yards. A lot of money was on the over. I think it had opened at about 68.5. Bets drove it up. 70.5 is where it went off at. And so James Cook went into that 2-minute warning with 73 rushing yards. And he got -3 yards on his final carry of the game, which put him at 70, which means that they went from the over hitting to the under hitting in one play, and he never got to touch the ball again and again because they ran that Josh Allen draw to close out the drive. So yeah, bad beat. I mean, and that's one of the things that you've got to certainly be careful of when you're doing the bets. Is Vegas is shrewd with those over-unders, man, and they know right where those lines need to be profitable. And that's why I'm a fan of betting like the alt numbers. Like I had James Cook plus 60 or more yards today because I felt like that was pretty safe. He cleared that pretty easily, but it's tough out in them streets, especially with Christmas coming. People out putting some bets in, and I think a lot of people lost a lot of money when James Cook hit the under. A lot of parlays got broken, and a lot of straight bets, I think, too.
Now, why do you think we had a hard time getting James Cook involved in the passing game today? Because he didn't get a single target, I don't think, until late in the third quarter.
I think one of the things is when the Chargers watch the film of Dallas, and when they watch the film really since Brady has taken over this offense, it's been James Cook. And I think they came into tonight the same way the Bills came into tonight, focusing in on Austin Eckler. I think the Chargers did the same thing. They came in focusing in on Cook, and Brady, I think wisely, really focused on using Cook as misdirection, not using him as a focal point of the offense, but more so understanding that they were going to see him as a focal point of the offense, using that as misdirection, and then trying to go the opposite direction as him. But he still got he still was the most productive player on the offense, not named Josh Allen, and he's going to continue to be that as long as they allow him to do it. It's just Gabe Davis did his Gabe Davis game of the season tonight, and right when they needed him to do it. After I think 4 out of the last 6 games, he hasn't even had a catch. So, this was the game, if he was going to bounce back, that they needed him to bounce back. And I think you saw Diggs get going a little late in the game, which was good to see, because that they need him to get going as we head into the home stretch here. But I think it's going to be a lot of variety as we go. It's going to be big Cook games. It's going to be Cook as a decoy games. It's going to be depending on game flow.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hoffman says this, and we mentioned it before we got on the live stream here. We do want to give credit to James Cook, first running back since I think you said McCoy, right, to get over 1,000 yards in the season.
McCoy. I think it was McCoy in maybe 2017 or 20.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 2017 was the last 1,000-yard rusher.
So we do want to give him credit. Still 2, right? 2 games to go. two big games,
2 games to go. Yeah.
So we'll see how
you gotta
he
have him games.
Some numbers. Yes, absolutely. So I do have to eat a little crow, and Ryan, you know this about me and anyone who's followed #sports. I don't want to say that I am an Ed Oliver hater, but I am not as high on Ed Oliver as a lot of people are. And I didn't call his name one time in the first half, not one time. And so at halftime, I was very critical of Ed Oliver. Big second half. Yeah. Including what I would call the game-winning sack. I don't know.
And that last sack, I think it's worth noting. He signed that big contract, obviously, in the offseason. That sack hit his escalator bonus. So that sack not only sealed the game for the Bills, but earned Big Ed a cool $500,000 in his pocket right before Christmas. So good timing on that. But yeah, I mean, he's one of the few instances where it's worked out for the Bills where a guy has outplayed his contract, who's again not named Josh Allen. And Oliver is just one of those guys where he's worth every penny of what they've paid him thus far. Now there's a long way to go with that contract, so there's a long way for Joe to turn out on the right side of things here. But so far, Ed Oliver is kind of the straw that stirs the drink on the defensive front. When he's on and he's playing really well, I think he still has the highest pressure rate of defensive linemen when being double teamed in the NFL, which is a massive stat for a guy like him. And you saw what he could do with somewhat of a game wrecker on the other side, because Poona Ford played a great game. It was a long time coming for Poona Ford to be active tonight after what I think we've seen out of Jordan Phillips over the last few games. It's been frustrating to see Ford not get his chance, and similar in Kingsley Jonathan not getting a chance despite Von Miller's struggles on the defensive front. But you see what Oliver can do, and it really should, I think, kind of galvanize that defensive front that Daquan Jones is practicing again. And if you could take Poona Ford, Daquan Jones, cycle them through on the other side of Ed Oliver, what's that defensive front going to look like come January? And that's a very scary proposition, I think, for a lot of football teams out there. And it's one of the reasons that people are saying they don't want to play the Bills come playoff time, is because of that defensive front. They didn't do it today, but they did it when they needed to. There was the big sack from Leonard Floyd, which potentially knocked the Chargers out of field goal range, which, Dicker made a great kick. And then obviously the one to seal it, but they kind of came when they needed to come. And other than that, they really struggled. So you'd like to see a little bit more consistency from that defensive front. But overall, great game from Ed Oliver, great game from Poona Ford, and everybody else kind of did their jobs around him.
Yeah, it was funny because you talk about the defensive line. Leonard Floyd, you didn't hear much about him until the last couple drives of the game too. Like, I didn't call his name at all either. So it was just like, where are these guys? You thought coming into this game that would be a strength, but one of my issues at halftime was Eckler, who was going into this game averaging like 3.4 yards a carry, is saying they're over 5.5, and it's just like, where is this coming from? Especially since, as you said, that's something the coaching staff over the week should have been. That's the one guy with Keenan Allen out who can beat you in this game.
Yeah, I was surprised, honestly, Eckler didn't see more looks. I mean, he only had, 18 touches on the day, and you would have thought that they would have tried to get him the ball more. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry when things were all said and done. But he's not been the Austin Eckler of old lately, but you would have thought this might have been a get-right game for him. Bills have struggled all season in against running backs out of the backfield catching the ball, and it just didn't seem like the Chargers had the confidence to run those types of plays to him. So I think the Bills lucked out that the Chargers didn't go to Austin Eckler a little bit more than what they did.
Yeah, it seemed like they were trying to get Everett involved a lot, which kind of was surprising to me, but he was open. He had some good looks. And also Palmer, seemed like they were trying to get him involved quite a bit in the passing game. And
Palmer had a huge game last week.
Yeah.
Despite the blowout, he had a big game last week, fresh off the injury report. So he's fairly fresh, because he missed, I think he's missed like the last 4 or 5 games before last week. So they definitely wanted to get him involved with Keenan Allen being out. They don't trust Quentin Johnston at all, which you can't really blame them after the gaffe that he had. That was, Kadarius Toney-esque, that really cost them a big opportunity. They would have been set up 1st and 10 or 1st and goal from inside the 5, but he gets called for an illegal formation. So, they were just stretched thin at wide receiver, but it seemed like they just continued to try to do what they do with just different guys instead of trying to focus in on the weapons that they really had that could have been effective. They could have killed them if it was an Everett and Eckler focused offensive attack instead of trying to spread the ball around. But that's what you get with a young quarterback too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and you talk about. We did talk a little about defensive line. You also have to realize that a lot of Sticks passes weren't long passes, right? He's only averaging 33 pass attempts, 215 yards. That's 6.5, I think, yards per attempt or whatever. So it's not like he was trying to really go downfield. But a lot of people run the same route trees and trying to get open. It's not a recipe for success a lot of times.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought the Bills did defensively. I thought they did a commendable job. I mean, really, the touchdown came on the Hardy fumble.
Yeah.
So really they were only able to muster, 15 points that didn't come off of, a short field turnover. So, and the other one was the Cook fumble that was 10 points. So, I thought the defense did a good job. You would have liked to have seen maybe a turnover against an Easton Stick. They almost had one to close out the game. Benford and Johnson were kind of fighting over it kind of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, I thought the defense did a good job. They locked down when they had to, and they needed Josh Allen to go out and make a couple big plays. And he made a couple big plays, and they got things done. Survive and advance at this point in the season for the Buffalo Bills, because with the loss of the Bengals today, the Bills just win out, and you're in the playoffs. And at this point, it doesn't matter how the wins come. You want them to look good if you're a fan, but at the end of the day, get to the playoffs, and that's a dangerous football team because any given day they can do what they did to Dallas last week.
Right. Yeah, I do want to talk a little about James Cook. Is there time to talk about like James Cook possibly having fumbling issues? It seems like he goes a stretch without any fumbles, but then when they start coming, they come in bunches.
Yeah, I mean, he had one, I think, earlier in the game that they wound up whistling dead, which I thought he was down. I didn't think that was a fumble. But yeah, I mean, it definitely is something that you have to be mindful of. I mean, it's one of the reasons that Devin Singletary is not here anymore, right? Devin Singletary was putting the ball on the turf once every 38 carries or something along those lines. Like it was a really high percentage. Typically in the NFL, it's like once every 90 carries. Usually, they're putting the ball on the turf. Maybe not a lost fumble, but running backs are putting the ball on the turf. So Cook is trending in that direction. Where he's on the higher end of that. First fumble of the season, or I'm sorry, only the second fumble of his career came in that game where they benched him. I think it was Denver, where they took him out and they didn't put him back in for the longest time. He's had a couple since then. I think he just needs to get used to the volume that he's seeing. He never saw volume in college, so this is the first time where he's touching the ball 20 plus times a game. And with that comes different types of concerns. You're not always going to get, the ball out of the backfield where you can catch it and secure it and tuck it the way you want. You're going to get handoffs that come in high, come in low, come in off to either side, and you've got to kind of adjust for that. And he's learning how to do that as a premier back at this point in time. But no, I mean, until it starts to get to the point where it's, 40, every 60 carries, then you really need to start worrying about it. But until then, it's not it's not something you need to worry about.
All right. So last thing, well, I want to talk about two more things. First, I want to talk about the end of the game, your thoughts, how the whole thing transpired. And then we'll get into the playoff picture and how that looks right now for the Buffalo Bills. Again, with the Bengals loss, it's as simple as just keep winning, right? And that's a good position to be in. That's the best position to be in, obviously. But I want to talk to you about the timeouts and also selling for a field goal at the end of the game and your thoughts on that overall. Obviously, in this situation, worked out for us, right? The Bills get the victory. that's all that matters, like you said. But overall, are you a fan of wasting clock and selling for a field goal? Personally, I hate playing a game and then selling for a kick to decide it. Maybe it's the wide right.
Yeah, I mean, I would have honestly. I mean, between us, I would have preferred Shakir not to be down because I kind of am a sicko in that I'd like to have seen how they handled that end of the game situation defensively. You know, because the Chargers would have gotten the ball back with about 2:30 left on the clock, with still a timeout to go. You know, and McDermott was signaling to go for 2, which was the right call. You go for 2, you try to go up 7. You know, put them in a situation where they've got to go score just to tie it to get to overtime. A lot of pressure. I'm aggression first, but as soon as Shakir was marked down and you had that first down, you kind of started to do the math in your head. And I'm in a group chat with some friends of mine, and they were, you know, they're all like, can somebody do the math? Like how much time is left for the Chargers? Like if the Bills just run this down, and he started to crunch the numbers, and you're like, 28 seconds, 27 seconds, somewhere in that range. By the time things get done, you kind of like your chances there, just run the clock and kick the field goal. So, I mean, I guess I'm okay with, you know, I'm okay with the Shakir touchdown. I'm okay with the field goal. I think, again, it's survive in advance. If this is a game where it's like, you know, you got to win it. You need help on the back end. Be aggressive. Go win the football game right then and there. But I'm perfectly fine with the way things played out, I think. At that point, it didn't help that Collinsworth was reminding everybody that the Bills were the Bills, and they had lost multiple games like that where they settled for the field goal. But, you know, despite that, I think you settle for what you can get, run as much clock as possible, which they did. Good clock management by McDermott, which has been something I've criticized him multiple times over. I thought he did a good job in that final 4-minute drive there offensively and with your timeouts.
Yeah, one of the best things about me streaming these games is I don't have to listen to people like Chris Collinsworth go over that over and over again.
We were talking about that earlier in the week. I'm in a few different group chats, and one of the things they came out was like, "Oh, did you see that the fourth quarter is going to be commercial free?" And I was like, "That just means more Collinsworth. That's all that means. It doesn't mean anything more than more Collinsworth." So I'd rather watch another Mercedes-Benz Christmas commercial than listen to Collinsworth tout Pro Football Focus and all their nonsense they got going on.
Now, I do have a question for you, and I know you're big on time management, so I thought this would be a good thing to ask. Would it have been better for the Chargers to use their timeout after the 2-minute warning? Because as soon as they found out Shakir was down, he used the last timeout with like you said, like 2:30, something like that to go. Would it have been beneficial in any way for him to let them run the first down play, call that timeout after the 2-minute warning?
Well, keep in mind the first down play, they wouldn't have needed to run it because there was 2:39 on the clock when Shakir got tackled. So if they hadn't called the timeout, that goes all the way down to the 2-minute warning. Right. So then the timeout comes with 1:55 left on the clock. You're kind of in the same boat at that point. Okay. It's kind of 6 and 1/2 dozen in the other. What really shot him in the foot was the timeout early in the half, where they took that early timeout. I think it was to avoid a run off the clock, a delay game. Yeah. So you know that's what really hurt him. But no, I don't think it would have been any different if they would have saved it for after the 2-minute warning.
Okay, and McDermott calling that last time out all the time.
Yeah, that's his Kodak, man. That's his. That's what he calls it. So that anyone who read the Ty Dunn article, I mean, he kind of gave some light to that because it's one of the things that there's been a lot of questions from folks like myself and Mario. Like we've questioned that. Like, what's the point in calling that defensive timeout? It's something that we've criticized him for in the past, and the article brought to light that McDermott calls that Kodak. He likes to kind of get the defensive lineup, see how the offense is going to adjust to the defensive lineup he wants to run, and then he makes the decision to say, do I want to come back out with this defense again, or do I want to give them a new look coming out of the timeout and make them adjust to it? It worked this time. It doesn't typically work, but you know, hey, if that's what makes him comfortable and that's what wins football games at the end of the day, I mean, I think the focus on that Ty Dunn article was and is that everything McDermott does, he does with the intention to win football games, right, wrong, or indifferent. The guy's always trying to win football games, and if that's what he needs to do to comfortably call a defense, then I'm for it. I just hate it, but hey, to each their own.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, like this defense has held their own past 3 games. I mean, last week's game, 31-10, that 7 points shouldn't be on the board. Like it was just whatever, but that's okay. So yeah, I mean, again, overall thoughts: Bills get their victory. I don't know if there's something you want to talk about from this game that we haven't hit on yet, but anything.
No, I mean, the only thing that I think overall that concerns me is Stephon Diggs and his involvement in the offense. I think they have to figure out ways to get the football into his hands. I don't like the fact that they're using him in the screen game. I much prefer they use him the way that they used him kind of in that middle of the 3rd to 4th quarter where they were running those slants and those kind of those little curl routes to get the ball in his hands. Josh had him on that rollout play. I think if Josh maybe takes a second to stop and set his feet instead of trying to throw that on the run, that's a touchdown. They've got to figure out a way to kind of get those two linked back up, because now I think is it 9 straight games now without over eclipsing 100 yards for Diggs. That's tough. And then I think defensively, this defense is getting healthier, and that's going to be a problem for a lot of people. Daquan Jones is getting ready to come back. Kaiir Elam's ready if they need him. I would be curious to see if they play him in the New England game, because especially if Miami loses, that New England game really kind of doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. If Miami loses tomorrow, everything is going to come down to Week 18. So, you wonder if they're going to maybe try to play Kaiir Elam, see what they have in him. It's a pretty, inept New England offense. So maybe that's an opportunity to get Elam some run, see if maybe the injury was what was causing some of the issues early on in the season. But overall, I think if this defense is going to get healthy, there's an outside shot that we see Milano, depending on where they make that playoff run. And man, again, if they can figure out that Josh and Diggs connection, with Cook emerging as the weapon that he is, Dalton Kincaid, the weapon that he's turning into, the defense getting healthy at the right time. Like, you say it and it's cliche, but this is not a team that anyone in the AFC is going to want to see. And then from there, if you can make your way to the Super Bowl against San Francisco, I mean, you got a puncher's chance against a team like that, because you don't know what Brock Purdy is going to look like come Super Bowl time. If they can get pressure up in his face, he's shown that he can be pedestrian. And one of the things McDermott has thrived on this season is getting pressure. So again, I think Bills fans strap in, because it's going to be a fun next 3 weeks here as we watch this thing play out. But I think there's every reason to be encouraged about the way this team is playing football right now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm excited too. And yeah, I mean, I was talking to the chat the whole time the game's going on, and I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. For any Bills fan who thought this was going to be a cakewalk victory and just looked at the records, that was not the way to come into this game. Again, there was a stat. Now the Chargers are 0-6 in 3-point games. So the games stopped by 3 points or less this season. So we knew that this team, again, even though they were down their quarterback, they're down receivers, we knew this team was going to be gritty at home, and we knew it wasn't going to be as easy as the Cowboys game was. They're not all that easy, guys. Just because the Cowboys game was easy, they're not all that easy. It's hard to win in the NFL, especially on the road. So yeah, so that takes care of the game. And now let's talk about the Buffalo Bills playoff chances. With the win, what did you say? What's their percent right now?
The percentage right now is 78% chance to make the playoffs, according to New York Times. The interesting thing too is, the New York Times playoff machine, it kind of lets you play around with like the games that are to play, and things like that. So obviously the Bills win tonight. You scroll down, you've got the Steelers who won earlier today to knock the Bengals off. The interesting thing, Bills fans, keep in mind, take a look at this game here. Dolphins, Cowboys has 0 impact on the Bills' playoff chances. So if the Dolphins win, it's not the end of the world unless they win again next week against the Ravens. Right. The only way that the Bills are not playing Week 18 for the division is if either the Bills lose against the Patriots or the Dolphins somehow manage to beat the Cowboys and the Ravens. It's the only way that Week 18 is not going to be for the division. Right. Even if the Dolphins lose the next two and win against Buffalo, the Dolphins will take the division. So The Bills, again, control their own destiny. You'll notice if they win, they're in. So it's as simple as that at this point in time. Get in and or win your next 2 games. You get the playoffs. You beat the Patriots, and nothing else happens. You're at about an 83%, 84% chance to make the playoffs. Any of these players down here, any of these games, the red are the teams you don't want to win. The blue are the teams you do want to win. So we're rooting for the Falcons, Browns, Bucks, Pats this weekend. Next weekend, you're rooting for Jets, Raiders, Panthers, Titans, Chargers, Chiefs. That's a tough next week of things to come to play.
That's speaking. If we lose to the Dolphins, correct?
If you're losing to the Dolphins and you're trying to back your way into the playoffs, because if you lose to the Dolphins, you still got a 65% chance to make the playoffs. Assuming you've beaten the Patriots at that point. There's a lot of things that can play out this weekend. But again, you're rooting against the Colts, Texans, Jags, and Broncos the rest of the way is the best way to look at it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the chances of us playing for the division at this point, week 18, are pretty substantial. Like, they're pretty good. And to think that way after the way that, I mean, to me, this has been a very disappointing season, to put it bluntly. But if we could still win the division, then who cares? Like, that's all that matters. And
and what a blow to the Dolphins too.
Yeah.
I mean, to be that. I mean, the Bills have had a bad season. This has been a disappointing year. For the Bills, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if you, as the Dolphins, still can't win the division with the Bills having a down year, that's a big time problem. If you're a Miami fan, if you're a Miami, if Miami ownership and all that, they're certainly not going to be happy with that. So it would be a big blow, but I think it would galvanize the Bills as well to be like, hey, adversity, we play better as the underdog, yada, yada, all those things that they want to talk about. You can have a bad year. You can lose games that you shouldn't have lost, and you still win your division and get a home playoff game. I mean, that's a big deal for a team like this, for sure.
Absolutely. But and on the flip side of that, I look at the Bills and Dolphins, and I say, if there's one team who can go into the playoffs as the 6th, 7th seed and just win on the road, it's the Bills. Like, the Dolphins need to be at home, to feel comfortable about potentially winning a playoff game. The Bills don't need that. The Bills have that veteran leadership with Josh, with Stephon Diggs, that I feel confident if we make it into the playoffs, we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, the Bills play an offense and defensive style that travels. You saw the struggles with the Cowboys when they're on the road. I mean, their splits are massively different. You really haven't seen the Dolphins play in any type of weather yet this season. So it'll be interesting to see, not this week, but next week, because the Dolphins, I believe, are going to Baltimore on New Year's Eve, which is, Baltimore is a tough place to play in general. But if you get some weather coming up the East Coast, some nasty storms or something like that, you're going to see how that team responds to a slick field, a slick ball, all those things that come into play. You definitely have to like Buffalo's chances in the playoffs because, quite frankly, I don't know how good any of the teams in the AFC are. I mean, I don't know how good any of them are. Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, I mean, you could get an MVP type of performance, and you can get a middle of the road performance from him, and they're down to their 4th running back, I think, this year. Their 2nd tight end. That's I don't know how good that team is. You've already beaten the Chiefs. The Bengals are out of it. I mean, the Bengals are in a free fall at this point after that loss tonight. So at this point in time, I think the AFC is absolutely wide open. There's no reason to think that Buffalo isn't the best team in the AFC at this point in time, despite this game that they just played tonight.
Right, because I mean, you look at the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence has a high ankle sprain. He's questionable from week to week, and high ankle sprains. And Ryan, you can attest to this too. They don't just go away. Like, he's going to be hurting for the next 4 or 5 weeks easily. Yeah. So, and then you have you have Joe Flacco,
and how good has he been even without it? I mean, there was a stat earlier today I think I saw the other day that. I mean, him and Daniel Jones are like eerily similar through their first 69 games of their careers. So, you wonder what that team looks like, even if you've got a healthy Trevor Lawrence. They just haven't been great this year. Good enough to beat Buffalo, for sure, in London. But there were a lot of circumstances around that.
Right.
So
right.
anything can happen, I think, in this AFC. I think it's wide open. But I think at the end of the day, if all teams are clicking on all cylinders, I still truly believe that the Bills are the best team in the AFC.
That's good to hear. I think about, I think about that too. And I definitely think that that's true when we had Milano in there. I think Trey White was just like a cherry on top. I don't think Trey White adds or removes anything from this team, to be honest with you. The way the secondary has been playing without him, I think it's been just fine, better than I thought they would. Daquan
Well,
Jones.
you don't make that trade for Douglas if Trey White's healthy.
Right.
And Douglas has been a revelation in that secondary since he came aboard. He's been just a different type of corner than you've had in years for Buffalo, where he can follow the number one guy. He can kind of shut down whoever you want him to shut down and let everybody else play around him. Not that you ever want to wish injury on anybody, but that Trey White injury, very well could have transformed the season, because now they go out and get Rasul Douglas. Now he's here for another 2 years, this year and next year. Still under contract, still young. It's just a different type of defense, I think, with him, especially if you can get Jones back here before the end of the year, and then an outside shot that maybe you're getting Milano back come playoff time.
Yeah, and that would just be adding horses to the race, right? Like, it'd be amazing if that would happen. So the Bills looking like they have a good shot at the playoffs. Big win today, as Josh said at the end of the game. Every game's a must-win at this point, and they're not going to be easy. And now we go. Next week's game's at home, I believe, against New England. Is that right?
Yep. Next week is the last home game of the year, unless they win the division. It's going to be 1:00 in Orchard Park against the Patriots on New Year's Eve. So make sure everybody gets an early start on their New Year's Eve celebrations. But again, I mean, it's a Patriots team that's beaten you once before, so they're gonna have to get up for this one.
And
especially if you're getting a Miami loss. Especially if you're getting a Miami loss, and don't forget too that Week 18 game, Bills against Miami. None of those games are set in terms of times, so don't be surprised if we wind up with one more night game this year, because I could very well see that Miami Buffalo game getting flexed into the night game because it's a win for the division. And they love to get those games last game of the season.
Now I heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, I haven't looked close enough, but I heard that they even have a flex Monday night game Week 18 this year.
I think they did last year. Yeah,
I think
they did that last year too, because I think that was the last year. I think it was Steelers and Bengals. I think that was that night game. So it'll be interesting to see. The only other one is potentially if the Steelers win out. I don't know, maybe that Ravens Steelers game gets flexed into the last night game, but it'll be it'll be must watch television, because again, if the Dolphins lose tomorrow, everything's going to come down to Week 18. So we'll see.
Yep. So, and it'll be fun, and we'll have you covered right here. #sports. Ryan, I know that the other guys do like a roast or something for the last minute. We never promised such a thing. Someone said I was wearing a Jaguars sweater. No, this is my ugly Christmas sweater. So don't get confused. I don't know how someone thought this was a Jaguars sweater, but it's my ugly Christmas sweater. So thanks. But yeah, for Ryan, for myself, Paul, Mario, guys, Bills win. We wish you guys all nothing but the best holiday season. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you all soon next week. I'll be live, and maybe Ryan you'll be at the game, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I'll be there.
He'll be there cheering him on.
I'll be there.
Hopefully getting your New Year's celebration a little bit early. Hopefully a more comfortable win. Because the New England, but I think New England will love to play spoiler. So yeah, like you said, we have to get up for that game. And we'll hopefully get it done. Enjoy your Christmas, guys. We'll see you soon. Until we do, Ryan, thanks again. And we'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody.
All right.
Thank you, Paul, as well as the rest of the #Sports crew. It's an honor being a sponsor. Investing in real estate, especially in the Phoenix metro area, may change your financial picture forever. And it's easier than you may think. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and proud of it. Yet I live in the Valley of the Sun, have for decades, and love it. I also humbly run one of the top real estate teams in Arizona. We help others score, as it were, when it comes to buying, selling, renting, and of course, investing in real estate. I've been a multi-million-dollar producer for many years, and the Mr. Rogers Homes Arizona real estate team has earned the top spot at West USA Realty for 10 years plus. Again, thank you, #sports, go Bills, and God bless